On the evening of May 3, 2007, a 3-year-old British girl disappeared from her bed in a holiday apartment in Portugal. Her disappearance is cited as the most heavily reported missing person case in modern history. We are, of course, talking about Madeleine McCann. But this video isn't about the 16-year search for the missing child. This video is about another missing girl, a girl who has been dubbed the Irish Madeleine McCann, and has been missing for nearly 47 years. Join Bad Things as we look at the perplexing case of Mary Boyle. What happened on the day she went missing? What theories or suspects have been put forward to explain this mysterious case? And what we think most likely happened to Mary Boyle. St. Patrick's Day is the feast day of St. Patrick, Ireland's patron saint. Originally commemorated by Catholic feasts and services, St. Patrick's Day evolved into a secular celebration of Irish culture when it arrived in the United States with Irish immigrants. St. Patrick's Day is filled with joy and commemoration of all things Irish, celebrated in pubs and street festivals all over the globe. The day after St. Patrick's Day 1977 would be anything but joyful for the Boyle family. The Boyle family, consisting of Charlie and Dan, their son Paddy, and twin daughters Mary and Dan, had travelled down the coast from their home in the small seaside town of Kincasla to the children's grandparents' rural farm in Cashlud, near Ballyshannon, for their annual St. Patrick's Day celebrations. On the 18th of March, after helping her mother clean up the lunchtime dishes and playing with her brother, sister and cousins, 6-year-old Mary accompanied her uncle Jerry over the puddle-covered field to return a ladder he had borrowed from a nearby farm, about 400 yards away. Mary followed her uncle through the boggy terrain until they came to a pool of water too deep for the little girl to cross. Whether by choice or at her uncle's insistence, Mary turned around halfway through the journey and said she was returning to her grandparents' farmhouse. Uncle Jerry returned to the farmhouse about 30 minutes after chatting with the neighbors. When asked where Mary was, Jerry was at a loss. From the place he last saw her to the farmhouse was, at maximum, a 5-minute walk. Terror struck the family as they searched for the little girl. They canvassed the surrounding area and asked passers-by whether they had seen the child. According to one fisherman, he saw Mary being loaded into a red car that drove away quickly. We must remember that this was a world before cell phones, social media, and GPS, and in 1977, very few households in that part of Donegal had landline phones. Mary's relatives had to catch the attention of a group of fishermen in a small boat on Lough Columcille next to the farm, and beg one of them to drive down small countryside roads in failing light to notify police in the adjacent town of Ballyshannon. Any hope of finding the girl quickly in these circumstances was virtually impossible. The Garda, Ireland's national police and security department, began a search of the region, draining bogs in search of the girl. They also emptied a lake behind her grandparents' home, but to no avail. They even went as far as making a filmed recreation of the disappearance, in which Anne Boyle played the role of her twin sister. Mary Boyle had vanished into thin air. What would come next was accusations of police ineptitude and political corruption that may have just let the little girl's kidnapper and/or killer go free. Former Detective Sergeant Aidan Murray said that the scene of the disappearance would have been quickly blocked off today. However, more than 4 decades ago, people were trampling over any evidence. Murray, a crime scene officer in South Donegal at the time Mary went missing, was a key investigator in paramilitary crimes during a period of high IRA activity in the region. There would be about 20 or 30 guards, and they would tramp over everything. By the time I got up, the scene wouldn't have been preserved. It would have been interfered with, a number of guards doing their duty, searching for some kind of an indication of where the child went. He estimated that between local and visiting Garda and citizens involved in the search, there might have been up to 200 or 300 individuals trampling all over the area. Murray spoke amid renewed interest in the case, fueled by a claim in a documentary, Mary Boyle, The Untold Story, produced by journalist Gemma O'Doherty, that a politician called the Ballyshannon Garda station to demand that a small group of people close to Mary not be named as suspects. Murray remembers hearing a story about a call at a subsequent Garda convention. Sergeant Martin Collins, a colleague, said the call came from an unnamed politician. Both former sergeants have said that the call was promptly disregarded and that no high-ranking officer interfered with their inquiry as a consequence of any call. Murray, who was interrogating the primary suspect as a witness at the time of the call, claimed an inspector told him to lighten up on his questioning and get a drink of water for the man. We will get to know who this man most likely was later. A history of mental instability in the suspect's extended family, according to Murray, was the reason for the command to lighten up on the suspect. Murray said that the inspector was concerned that if the suspect was pushed too far, he might take his own life. When it was put to the suspect that Mary may be deceased during the questioning, the suspect lost a head a wee bit, Murray said. The suspect accused the investigator of wrongly accusing him of whatever happened to the girl. Murray and Collins also denied in the documentary that there was a Garda cover-up due to political intervention, which resulted in no one being detained as a suspect in Mary's disappearance. Murray, who stated in the documentary that the ease-off instruction was delivered as a result of the phone call to the Garda station, later claimed that because they were still investigating a case of a missing child rather than a dead child, the instruction was that no one could be arrested for murder. Yet, if there's any cover-up, it's not within the Garda, he said. He said if there was a cover-up, it was in a small group of people linked to the Cashlad area. Everybody felt that they closed ranks on us. Somebody up there knows more than they are saying. Sergeant Collins categorically denied that Garda had covered up political meddling in the investigation. He said that a call was made to the station, with the essence of the call being that none of a select number of persons connected to the Cashlad area would be considered suspects. A station orderly took the phone and routed it to one of the offices down the hall. All I know is that the name of a politician was mentioned. I didn't hear the phone call, Collins said. It was common knowledge about this phone call, but it was treated with the utmost negativity, and it had nothing whatsoever to do with the investigation. Collins acknowledged that the politician who made the decision might have been well known. The whole thing should be about the missing child, Mary Boyle, Collins said, refusing to disclose the politician's name. Collins would go on to say, "The cover-up, the punchline as I call it, of a cover-up and Garda influence that was taken away, in my view, from the most serious matter, which is Mary's disappearance. If there is a cover-up, it's certainly not within the Garda, and it's certainly not influenced by any politician. There are persons, and I have even said it in the documentary, there are persons out there who are withholding vital information, and it's now time after 40 years for those people to come forward with that information. It's only a small cohort of persons." There is widespread speculation that Sean McKenniff, a Donegal County Council and Bundoran Town Council councillor, made the call. McKenniff acknowledged that he was at the centre of the interference scandal, but categorically denied making any phone calls. He stated that if he needed to contact the superintendent at the time, he would have used his direct number rather than going via the station switchboard. "I would never be involved in that, nor would I ever be involved in it. That's what you call corruption of the highest order," McKenniff said. McKenniff sued O'Doherty for defamation over a YouTube video, seeking €75,000 in damages, even though McKenniff was never mentioned by name in the movie. Were there any other suspects or theories on what happened to little Mary, beside the suspect that investigators were told to leave alone? One suspect has repeatedly come up in investigations and speculation concerning Boyle's disappearance, and rightfully so. On the July 14, 1990, David Herx was mowing his front yard when he saw a blue transit van coming to a stop across the street. The driver got out of the van and started cleaning his windscreen. Herx also noticed his 6-year-old neighbor walking past the van. As Herx knelt to clear grass clippings from his lawnmower, he noticed a girl's feet lifting from the pavement. He stood up to see the vehicle's driver hastily pushing something through the passenger door before climbing across to the driver's seat, closing the passenger door and starting the engine. Herx took note of the van's registration number as it raced away, realizing he had just witnessed a kidnapping. Herx rushed to the girl's house to inform her mother, who immediately phoned the police. 6 police vehicles arrived in the area within minutes. As Herx described the vehicle to law enforcement officers, he saw it approaching them and yelled, "That's him! That's the same van." An officer leaped in the van's path, causing it to come to a standstill. The driver was immediately pulled from his seat and handcuffed by police. One of the police officers, the abducted girl's father, climbed into the back door of the vehicle while yelling his daughter's name. When he saw movement in a sleeping bag, he loosened the drawstring to find his daughter inside, wrists tied behind her back, legs tied together, her mouth bound and gagged with adhesive plaster, and a hood wrapped over her head. The girl remembered the lay-by on the A7 where the man had assaulted her. His plan had been to make a last planned delivery before torturing and undoubtedly murdering his victim. Police had just arrested Robert Black, a Scottish man who would later be convicted of being a serial killer and paedophile. Black would be convicted of the kidnap, rape and murder of 4 girls aged between 5 and 11 in a series of crimes committed between 1981 and 1986 in the United Kingdom. Black's reign of terror is said to have begun when he began working as a van driver for a London-based firm, distributing poster advertisements around the country. This would allow him to attack in random, isolated locations, making it hard for police departments to connect the dots. Black had evidently thoroughly planned his crimes. He had the perfect job, darting in and out of areas without being noticed, and the right vehicle, a van with black drapes that could be used to conceal the rear windows. He even spent money on several types of spectacles to clumsily disguise himself in unfamiliar surroundings. But how does Black tie up to Mary Boyle's disappearance? Police suspect Black committed more murders than the 4 for which he was convicted, with senior investigators estimating that he murdered at least 8 young girls. Black was a cross-border truck driver who often visited Donegal as part of his employment travel and might have been in the region when Boyle went missing. Black was well known in the neighborhood and had been charged by the Garda for drinking after hours on one occasion. When Boyle went missing in 1977, his vehicle was seen outside a bar in Annagry in Donegal. Chris Clark, a former Norfolk police intelligence officer, believes Black is responsible for Mary's kidnapping and death. There is confirmation that Black was a regular visitor to the local pub in Annagry, County Donegal, Clark said. He even appears on the police charge sheet for after-hours drinking with others. His van was also noted parked regularly behind the old Cope Yard at Dunglow, and one witness later recalled hearing a whimpering or crying about the time of Mary's disappearance coming from Black's van. Clark also discovered evidence that the sex predator returned to the County Donegal region in 1978, searching for another victim. His presence was additionally recorded in the area a year after Mary went missing. He was noted by female witnesses asking about another girl. When they declined to help, they described him as becoming angry. Black never confessed responsibility for any of the murders for which he was convicted or suspected, including Boyle's, and he refused to help authorities even though he had minimal possibility of ever being released from prison. Black, 68, died of a heart attack in HMP Mahaberry on January 12, 2016. At the time of his death, it was widely believed that Black could not have been responsible for Mary's disappearance. What most likely happened in the 47-year-old Mary Boyle disappearance case? If you recall what former Detective Sergeant Aidan Murray said, "If there's any cover-up, It's not within the Garda. If there was a cover-up, it was in a small group of people linked to the Kashlad area. Everybody felt that they closed ranks on us. Somebody up there knows more than they are saying. Was the kidnapper and possible murderer known to Mary's family and the people in Kashlad? Bad Things and the closest person to Mary think this may be the case. Anne Doherty, Mary's identical twin sister, claims that she and her family know who murdered Mary. She claims that the man was well known to her and her twin. In the documentary Mary Boyle, The Untold Story, Anne said, "I believe that Mary had a secret, and because Mary was feisty, Mary would have told. She would do the talking for the two of us. So I believe that Mary had to be killed." She continues, "to stop her telling." Anne believes her bubbly and feisty twin sister Mary was sexually molested before her death. Was Mary's secret a family secret? Is the suspect who got a pass from a politician part of this secret? Jerry Gallagher, Mary Boyle's uncle, and the last person to see her alive, died in early 2023. Gallagher gave multiple contradictory and unsatisfactory explanations of what occurred on the day she went missing. According to some who have followed the case, his story that his niece disappeared into thin air after following him on his walk to the neighbors doesn't hold water. Some police officers who were first on the scene in 1977 believe Jerry Gallagher is to blame for Mary's abduction. Sergeant Colin recalls a conversation with Gallagher in which he told him he was responsible for his niece's abduction. Gallagher, he claims, sat silently and made no move to deny the claim. Collins, who was initially denied admission to the cottage by the family, also asserts that he was informed on many occasions by Anne Boyle, Mary's mother and Jerry Gallagher's sister, that she suspected Gallagher was responsible for the disappearance. Mrs. Boyle told Mary's twin sister Anne and Irish country singer Margot O'Donnell, a distant relative, the same story. Mrs. Boyle suddenly repudiated her opinion, saying that the subject should be handled privately rather than publicly. She has been critical of the justice campaign for her daughter, and she has told Donegal coroner Dr. Dennis Macaulay that she does not want an inquest into her daughter's death, depriving Mary, her twin sister, and the public closure in the case. Additionally, Collins asserts that another close relative of Mary came to him in tears at Ballyshannon Station in the days after her abduction. He maintained his belief that Gallagher was responsible for her disappearance. Collins's theories have been backed by Detective Murray. He alleges that he was on the verge of getting a confession from Gallagher during an interrogation when he received a nudge under the table from his senior officer, who told Murray to leave the room and fetch water for the suspect. The call that preceded this nudge was probably made by Sean McKenniff. It turns out that Jerry Gallagher campaigned for the politician in Ballysshannon's rural townlands with his brother Michael. McKenniff has been the subject of some disturbing claims other than corruption. A young lady has come forward to accuse him of grooming and sexually abusing her as a child. She claims he also forced her to have sex with other men in the hotels he owned while he watched. The woman, who has never spoken publicly about the assaults, also claims that her report to Garda about the abuse was ignored. For decades, there have been rumors that a major paedophile network comprising politicians, business leaders, and other VIPs operated in South Donegal, including a late member of the royal family. Were Jerry Gallagher and Sean McKenniff part of this network? After her uncle's death, Anne Doherty would say, "I just hope that maybe there are others who might have been told something, who might now speak out after the death of my uncle. I believe there are people still alive who know where my sister was left. Someone knows what happened. All it would take is an anonymous call or a letter. It's not about knowing what happened, it's about finding Mary, wherever she was left. That is all they have to do. It would put us out of our torture." Anne feels that the answer to her sister's death lies inside her own family. Regarding her uncle's recent death, she said that she would like to see the Garda reopening the matter. All I have to cling to now is hope. I don't want my own children to have to search for answers, although they would in a heartbeat, she said. My twin sister is the first thing I think of every morning, and my last thought at night. Was Jerry Gallagher, Mary's uncle and the last person to see her, responsible for her disappearance? With the passing of nearly 5 decades, will someone come forward and provide information on the name of a suspect or suspects? To date, Mary's disappearance is the longest missing child case in the Republic of Ireland. Please leave us your opinion in the comments section below. We would love to hear from you. If you love our content and want to support the channel, feel free to check our web shop where you can find exclusive true crime merch brought to you by Bad Things.